Joining me right now from Brussels is the Wall Street Journal's Stephen Fidler to talk more about the reaction. Also from Washington, American Enterprise Institute senior fellow and former U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, John Bolton. Ambassador, let me begin with you. What are your thoughts this Monday morning?
Well, I think it still remains to be seen what the European and American reaction to this tragic attack on Friday is going to be. It's true that the French moved quickly, but the reports are that their airstrikes consisted of 20 bombs. And even though U.S. airstrikes were also reported attacking fuel trucks, the U.S. Air Force calls that kind of attack truck plinking, where you send our extraordinarily technologically advanced fighter bombers against individual oil trucks. I'm not at all sure that so far, anyway, we haven't seen an essentially political response rather than a military response.
Ambassador, one question that everyone is asking this morning is if we knew so many specifics in terms of where these recruitment centers were and where other ISIS headquarters are in Syria, why did it take another attack in France to actually begin this bombing on those specific sites?
Because too many leaders in Europe and the United States are living in a parallel universe. You know, the President of the United States said on Friday, 12 hours before these attacks in Paris, that ISIS had been contained. And I think Europe has demonstrated its blindness by its willingness, before Friday anyway, to accept hundreds of thousands of refugees from all across the Middle East and North Africa claiming to be from Syria. I just think that the West collectively has yet again let its guard down, and we'll see now if this tragedy serves as a wake-up call.
And I want to ask you in a moment, Ambassador, if you think we are actually seeing a shift in the conversation or a shift in policy. But let me bring Stephen Fidler in here from the Wall Street Journal. Stephen, what are you reporting this morning?
Well, there are a number of, as they try to follow up the leads on this, there are a number of things going on. There have been raids across a number of cities in Paris. We believe there's one going on in Brussels right now. There have been a couple of bomb disposal trucks past the office here looking to see at a street nearby to see if there is a bomb supposedly in a car. So there's quite a lot of nervousness, and obviously the threads are being picked up and followed in the investigation.
But you wonder if it's too little too late. Certainly it is too little too late for those who've lost loved ones on Friday night here in Paris. Ambassador, let me get back to that question. Has there been a shift in terms of policy? What do you think this means for policy and the policy of letting in refugees and even toward the 2016 general election?
Well, I think in terms of how to deal with ISIS itself, the White House has said simply that we would redouble our efforts. But since our efforts were at an extraordinarily low level, that doesn't necessarily tell you anything. And statements from the White House over the weekend have indicated they don't see any reason to shift the refugee admission policy at all, even though every indication I've been able to pick up is that we have no real vetting capability to distinguish between real refugees we should let in for humanitarian reasons and others who just are taking advantage of this opportunity. I think that the situation is extraordinarily complicated, not only by the threat of ISIS, but by the coalition that Vladimir Putin has put into play with Iran, the Assad regime, Hezbollah, the Baghdad government, also opposed to ISIS, but with a very different view of the outcome they want in the Middle East. This is not a time for tactical suggestions, no-fly zones, invoke Article 5. This is a time for some leader to come forward, maybe a presidential candidate in this country, with a real strategy to do what the president himself says he wants to do, which is to destroy ISIS.
Yeah, I believe that on the Democratic debate over the weekend, Secretary Hillary Clinton said that she would recommend opening up the borders to 65,000 at least, 65,000 to 100,000 refugees from Syria. But I guess my question once again, Ambassador, is how do you vet those people? If we can't even get specifics in terms of who they are from the Syrian government, how is it even possible to expect any vetting process?
Well, precisely. I don't think that is possible at the moment. Look, there are people who deserve humanitarian parole into the United States, people from the ancient Christian congregations that ISIS has been destroying, the Yazidis whose tragedy we saw earlier this year. But at the moment, it's very difficult to separate the people who have legitimate claims of persecution or the well-founded fear of persecution, which is the bar they have to cross, versus people who would just rather be in the United States than in refugee camps in Turkey or Jordan. I think Europe faces exactly the same problem. They've already made what could be a catastrophic mistake in letting hundreds of thousands of people cross into Europe. Who knows what percentage of those are potential terrorists? The United States should not repeat that mistake.
Ambassador, thanks very much for your insights this morning. We appreciate it. Ambassador John Bolton. Stephen Fidler from the Wall Street Journal. We'll check back as news develops. I know that you are reporting on all of those raids we have been discussing. We will get back to you on that. Thanks very much, Stephen.